Hi, everybody. Matt Lawton here. This is the Astrological channel. I'm going to take a look at the astrological weather report for the week of March 2nd through 8th. We've got a really busy week this week. Two of the inner planets changing signs, Mars going into Pisces, Venus going into Aries, the sign of its detriment. We also have a full moon at 13 degrees Virgo, which is also a lunar eclipse. And we also have the Sun and Mercury retrograde doing their inferior conjunction. Venus is also going to conjunct Saturn and Neptune. A lot going on this week. So, a lot to talk about this week. First off, a little bit of business. The Astrological Winds channel is a free video blog that I do on YouTube every week. It's the sixth year, I think, that's in. And if you got a YouTube account, I'd really like you to become a follower if you dig what's going on here. And obviously, and if you do, don't forget to turn on your notifications so that you know when the blog is posted because otherwise you kind of just kind of forget about it. Probably they won't notify you, and I won't either. Also, remember the blog was a podcast long before it was a video blog, so the exact same audio copy is still put out on podcast through Buzzsprout. You go to your podcast app, just look up Astrological Winds channel. You'll find several options to be able to hear it there. I really like the podcast option still because I know it's a busy world. And, it might be the only time you ever get to hear the blog is when you're driving to work or, taking a jog or something like that. So, I definitely get it. So that's another option for you is out there. Also, if you have an Instagram page, so does Astrological Winds channel. So if you become a friend or a follower, I should say, then you'll get in your newsreel every Monday the link to the blog on the YouTube channel. And then it can always be found on my website, www.astrologicalwinds.com. There's a blogs tab. There's at least 3 months of the past blogs there, the past annual blogs, the monthly blogs. So if you need to go back and refer to things there, they are. There's a little calendar up there telling you the Earth Day holidays each week. It's real fun to check out. Plus, it has my menu for all my professional services. I've been a professional astrologer for 24 years now, and I would love to do your chart or some chart work for you or someone else that's looking for that. So check that out there. I do ask, since this is a free service that I give every week, that you every week or anytime you check the blog out, pass the link along to somebody in your contacts that you haven't passed it along to yet, or if you're new to this, please do that for me to pay it forward. It's really what I find the best way to get people who really want to hear the blog to stick, that it's not just like some little everybody's hitting this week and I'll never hear about that again. So like I like the people who stick because they're the ones who I know are getting something out of it. And remember, if you don't know astrology well, don't get stuck on the terms. You want to work with the energy. That's the whole point of astrology, is having the knowledge so that we can work with it, be more in harmony in our lives with the energy that's going on outside. All right, so let's get into this. Today, Monday, Mars goes into Pisces. And although not traditionally in a sign of weakness, my experience in all the years I've been into astrology, almost 40 years now, that Mars in Pisces is not very comfortable. It's not the best place for Mars to be. And what I see is it can be very divisive energy. Mars is a troublemaker. We all know that. He's the lesser malefic, right? And a lot of times we can get very subjective, egotistical, very like self-motivated, not checking out, the effects of our actions on others and the environment. So like, when Mars gets into Pisces, our motivation can be really fed by idealism to the point of fanaticism. A lot of that can be based on, religious beliefs or our philosophies or whatever we think our values are. And I think this is a pretty dangerous time actually for Mars to be going into Pisces, because we had that setup. We've been seeing how crazy the world has been under this Saturn and Neptune conjunction going into Aries together, and Pluto going into Aquarius last year. Uranus is going into Gemini, and like a lot of stress in the world, a lot of stuff. And like these inner planets will be the trigger points for like the stress to actually manifest even more so. And Mars is people acting, right? It's all about our actions every day and what's motivating them. So like that's why I think this can be really dangerous at this particular time of Mars for these. It will be until April 10th, actually, that it goes through the sign of Pisces. So it's about 2 months. And I think it's just going to be a really triggering time where people are really entrenched in their ideals and beliefs and are willing to fight it out. And the thing is with Pisces too, Pisces is one of those signs where you're willing to sacrifice too. Like, you'll put your body on the line, to like fight for this stuff. It's very like collectively driven. There's an energy underneath us that's pushing us to do things. And, you can hear what people say, even some of the stuff that's gone on in the US the last few months, like they're out there for their neighbors, they're protesting for them. So, I really think it's going to be very sensitive, but getting a little bit more down on the personal level with this, very sensitive for our bodies. Remember, Mars has a lot to do with our bodies, so, watch our bodies during this time, watch our health, watch the environments, the things we expose ourselves to. People are actually not as assertive as they normally are when the Mars is in Pisces. And part of that is because there's actually a lot of confusion in the air, a lot of unclarity in the air about where they exactly want to go ahead right now, which way to go. And once again, how fitting is that in the world that we have going on right now? It doesn't matter whether, where you are socioeconomically, or where you are in a country or the world or what your beliefs. It seems like everybody like is really feeling like, wow, the world is just spinning to a point where I'm really unclear about where to go. As I quote a song here from one of my favorite artists, it's like, if I had known, or if I had gone through something like this before, then I might know what to do. I might know what to do. But that's how people feel with Mars and Pisces. They don't know what to do. They're not sure what to do. So that can actually make us less assertive, less clear about where to go. Sometimes with the sensitivity that it brings in, the energy can just be so overbearing to us that we kind of shut down, that we dug out, that we figure out some way to escape. So, and this is another one too. Pisces can be, I've said this before, it can be on the negative side, the great deceiver. And we can get a sense that there's a lot of secret actions going on behind the scenes of things. You think about in the US again, the Epstein stuff, there's a lot of stuff. And what does that do? In general, it creates an air of suspicion, right? So when Mars is in Pisces, people don't trust one another as much. They don't have as much confidence in one another. They start to lose that. They start to see little things that make them think, you know what? This person might be holding back something on me, might not be completely on the up and up. Now, the good side of Mars and Pisces, like I said, it's all about actions. It's a time when we will take a lot of compassionate acts too, or we'll go out there to try to help others out of literally unconditional love, literally. And once again, we've seen this example a little bit in the US where people are going out for their neighbors, and and putting themselves in a place where they can be endangered because of what they're standing up for. But people can put aside their own needs for others, and with Mars and Pisces. And what happens is, what's cool really about that, because Pisces is such a collective sign, when you do that, it is reciprocated to you. The energy creates a circle or an Ouroboros, and it comes back to you when Mars is in Pisces. So if you can stay true to those ideals, it usually is a very mutually beneficial thing that you can do. Then Tuesday is the full moon, and here it is at 13 degrees of Pisces conjunct the south node, which is why it's a lunar eclipse. Remember, eclipse season, second eclipse of the year, always when the nodes are close to the sun and moon, or the sun and moon when it's a full moon. So here is the opposition to the sun down here, and the moon is applying to a sextile to Jupiter retrograde. And so this is a really interesting one, because if you always remember what's a full moon about, there's a conflict going on in ourselves between the emotions, right, and our will and what we're motivated by, what our self journey is. And it always charges up energy. Oppositions, the sun and moon being opposite, are an energy charger. You're getting energy is coming into you, usually through relationships. And with full moons, right, things can always feel like they're getting really carried away. So there can be a lot of discord with other people. That's the opposition again, the other. And there's a lot of emotional struggle that goes on during full moons, but there's a lot of energy. And as we know, people act out during full moons. We've heard that, we've seen it. People who work in emergency rooms know it. It's things where people really do things that they kind of, something pushes them over the edge, right? So the moon in Virgo, what does the moon in Virgo want? The moon is all about our security. The moon in Virgo wants a book of rules. It already knows that it has some time tested and true procedures that work and are perfected, and they get the practical results. There's a methodology that's involved here, time tested and true, right? That's Virgo. But what is the problem with that is it narrows the mind, and it narrows the emotions even, and it narrows the way we think that things can be done, therefore. And what does that put us to? It puts us on the negative side of Virgo, where we get really critical or judgmental of others who are doing something different than the way we do it. And we think that we have the right way of doing things, right? And so we're going to go out of our way to kind of be picky and be pushy about that. And that is where you can, the bad part of that Virgo energy can come in, but it's definitely an energy that wants logic. It wants to be grounded. It's very good at analytical thinking, at working out the details one step at a time. Virgo is also very much related to our health. And so, we have to be really careful. It's a time where we should be reviewing what we're doing for our health. And is there anything that we need to refine? Is there anything that we need to adjust? Our diets, our habits, our exercise regimes, and things like that. And the sun and Pisces, they're on the axis together, right? They're on the service axis. Virgo, service to others, and service to ourselves, service to others through work, which actually benefits us too. And then the 12 is service to the collective, right? And so that, so the sun in Pisces is the opposite. It's actually more emotional than the moon in Virgo. The sun in Pisces is a super sensitive place where, and it goes by feeling. It feels things out. And that's the opposite. There's no set plan. It's just kind of going along, feeling things out, right? So that's the opposite of what the moon in Virgo wants. So you can see here's where there's a problem, right? Between the two of them. It's really, very connected to our emotions, and very sensitive, and will retreat inside when that Virgo criticism and judgment comes in, and will go inside and think, this full moon could actually have a lot of brooding, inside. It may not make us very social. It may feel really misunderstood. It may be really difficult to communicate how we're feeling. And especially with Mercury retrograde, which happens to be the ruler of the full moon in Virgo, with Mercury retrograde in Pisces, it shows that, it's going to be really difficult to connect with others, and we can feel really disheartened by that, and we can feel really misunderstood and lost in our own subjective world, basically. And with the moon conjunct the south node, that's where the lunar eclipse comes in. It shows right now it's just really difficult to adapt to the situations that are going on around us, to the people that are going on around us. And we may feel like right now, especially, literally disagreeable with a lot of people and feeling like, what, I can't really have these people in my life right now. I need to, separate from them. A lot of times, too, the South Node being up there, it's people from the past who can be really dragging us down, and now under the full moon, that full moon light, we can really clearly see who that is, and we want to move away from them. It's gonna kind of feel like they're the ones who are blocking us, blocking our ideals, blocking us from doing what we want to do. So this is a big indicator of like separation kind of energy at times. It's interesting too that, that the Mercury retrograde is trine the Jupiter too, and which is also retrograde, and it's a 5-degree trine, and it shows that there's still some really good ideas and visions that we have in our ideals, but this is not the time that they're going to be working. That you're going to have to wait until after the Mercury retrograde period is over, probably 3 to 5 weeks before you'll really be able to start implementing some of this stuff that you see. So it's really interesting, on that level. And it shows that, there is some hope, like even the applying sextile of the moon to Jupiter here shows that we can keep an optimistic attitude about visions that we see for the future, even if they're not right now happening, and that can actually help fight off some of the overwhelming emotions and maybe even like depressing kind of emotions of the full moon and the sensitivity that that brings in. It shows us, I still have a vision. I still have something that I think is going to work for the future. The timing just isn't right, but I can work really on the abstract level with that, somehow. And I just think that eventually it will show if we can do that. That we will create some opportunities 3 to 5 weeks from now where the benefits of the Jupiter part can really start to kick in. And so that, is one way to help fight that. But look to where 13 degrees of Pisces and Virgo are in your chart. And that axis, those two houses are the ones that you're going to be seeing and really feeling this personally in your life. And now remember, it is an eclipse too. And it's a lunar eclipse. A lot of times the lunar eclipses are not as big with the outer events that affect us as like inner events, how we're feeling about things. We can really be chewing a lot of things over, and that by itself can start to create events around us in the world that reflect the turmoil usually that we're feeling inside. But that can lead to a turning or breaking point within us where we're just like, oh my gosh, it is just so overwhelming emotionally right now. I have reached a point that I haven't been to before where I need to leave certain things behind. This is it. I've reached my turning point or breaking point. So this eclipse for many of us can be a big shift in the way we see and do things and approach things in life. There can be some big changes in sort. Now, no doubt, it's a full moon, right? And it's on an Earth. It's in an Earth full moon with a water sign, so we can see natural disasters that have to do with water going the earth, earthquakes, things like that. Full moon, lunar eclipse. The power and gravity is really strong. The electromagnetics is really strong, and that affects people too. That's why people act out. So we can see once again man-made events, either by individuals or groups or leaders or countries, that can be really distressing also. All that stuff. All right, I need to move on from the full moon. Still got a lot of other stuff I want to cover this week. Now on Wednesday, Venus is sextile Uranus. So this is a good one. I really like this one. This is one where you realize you need, and maybe the full moon actually drives this, where you realize you just need a break from your normal routine, from the way you're doing things. So Wednesday's just a great day to do something different, find somebody different, maybe connect with someone you don't connect with as much, or you might run into somebody that you've never connected with before and have like this really exciting, stimulating short term connection where both of you have something valuable for one another. And so I really like that. It's a good day to just seek out some kind of new experience, some kind of new connection. It does give us on the romantic side, Venus, a flirtatious kind of open energy. And like if we connect on a romantic level, a lot of times it's either short term or it's some kind of alternative or different kind of connection. This also gives a interest in alternative forms of art, that, can maybe shock us a little bit, something different. Also, one time opportunities for a financial break. So, like, there may be some financial opportunity that comes along, jump on it because that's it. And it's not, don't expect it to be a reliable source in the future either. It's like a one time wham, comes in and that's it, right? Then Thursday, continues the full moon energy with the sun trine Jupiter, which is actually one of the best aspects there is, one of the most positive aspects there is. Once again, showing we really have a big vision, but also we're very at peace and harmony with the world, with each other and our environment. We can stay positive. We can use the energy to accomplish a lot if we want to, but a lot of times people just kind of, do their normal thing and realize, wow, everything went really great today. Everything was in harmony, no red lights, short lines at the store, whatever. You know what I mean? So it can feel like almost like a good luck day in a certain way. But once again, a great day for planning for the future because you have a excellent foresight, can really see the big picture well. The mind wants new experiences once again, just like the Venus Uranus the day before. So exposing yourself in to anything that you really like that brings in those new experiences, brings in new knowledge, ups up your whole level of things is a good thing to do this day. Then Friday starts off the Venus journey when it goes into Aries, which is the sign of its detriment, and then it will immediately conjunct Neptune Saturday, and then Sunday conjunct Saturn. So this can be a tricky weekend for relationships for sure. Now, Venus, like I said, it's traditionally weak in Aries. Why? Because Aries is probably the single most individuated sign, and Venus is the planet of relationships that's looking at the other instead of the self. So trying to connect with others when Venus and Aries can be a little bit tricky because we get very subjective when Venus is in Aries, very pushy in the way we want relationships to go down. So it can, bring disharmony a lot of times. We even, Venus and Aries can be very affectionate, but it can be pushy with its affection. It's kind of be like those bad old males that, don't know when no is the answer kind of energy. You know what I mean? So like, be really careful about that. It's very difficult for us to see how our energy is affecting others when Venus is in Aries. And usually we are not giving enough. We're not willing to give enough. We're really hell bent on trying to get our way in relationships, and that can make them very, very difficult. We can be actually tactless. We're honest, but we're tactless too, and so it can be really hard to make compromises in relationships because you want things your way. So this can, definitely makes you want to go out and initiate relationships, but like once again, a lot of times you can get too pushy, you can get literally voyeuristic with this energy. It's something where when we do go out, we want to be seen, we want to be popular, we want, so we can be really pushy about being who we are. We're still not willing to compromise. It can be an aggressive kind of energy, so it's not charm that we're using, and but then it goes into this energy of going right to Venus conjuncting Neptune. And these are the two planets of love, right? The higher octave is Neptune, is spiritual, unconditional love. The lower octave is Venus, it's conditional, it's human love. And when these two get together, we can get very idealistic about our relationships in love, and we're setting ourselves up for disappointment. And, it can, as far as the day goes, it can put us in a very pleasant, dreamy state of mind where we're living in a fantasy world. It's a great day, actually, on Saturday to go out and expose yourself to nature or to art or to be in some kind of harmonious environment. It's really, really excellent for things like that, and it can definitely fire up our inspiration on a creative level, so we can get, artistic, we can get involved in creative activities, but and as far as the love part goes, if we're acting in compassion, this is one of the ones that's like more like the Pisces love. It's looking, coming from an unconditional compassionate love where we're giving ourselves, sacrificing ourselves for others. So that's something we can do really beautifully with love in with Neptune. But I think with, as far as individual love, we got to be really careful again because it's in Aries, and we're going to try to be pushing our own ideals onto others. And that can be really unrealistic. And that can actually have the other person squirming inside, like, oh my gosh, I like, as soon as I can get away from this person, I'm getting away, So, like, be careful about being overbearing, even if you think, your ideals are this beautiful thing, because that will lead to Sunday's Venus conjunct Saturn, where we have to have a reality feedback moment about our relationships. And we have to look at it where Neptune's ideals crash on the shores of reality. And this can really sober us up about relationships and basically make us more realistic about them. It actually favors relationships that are, like non-emotional, like business relationships or getting advice, like counseling relationships, things like that. And it also shows you the ones you want to separate from, the ones that you feel like the gap between you is so large that you're never really gonna make a good connection. So he really cools us off emotionally. And that's what I mean. Watch out for this setup on this weekend. Go in aggressive, thinking you want something, bringing all your ideals in, then the ideals crash on the shore of reality. And it's like, oh, ouch, that hurt. That could all happen next weekend really quickly to us, especially with the Aries energy, which moves fast, but it, shows once again there are people that we may want to separate from, that we just don't want them in our lives anymore, and then we're looking for other people who are more reliable. And this helps us determine who that is. It's also, once again, to be a time where we should be restrained or conservative with our resources. Now, the other big thing I want to mention with Saturday also is Mercury retrograde's inferior conjunction to the Sun, which is the midpoint of the Mercury retrograde cycle. And you know how communications slow down Mercury retrograde. So this is the time where I think people get the most within, they get the most withdrawn, they get the most quiet, and that, a lot of the self-talk is going on inside. So this is a high point of that. Which what does that do? It gives us a very subjective way of thinking. And once again, that makes it very difficult to communicate with others. Everybody is wrapped up in their own thoughts. And yes, they may want to communicate them, but no one's listening. you know so and this one too, during Mercury retrograde, if you're doing, it's good for paperwork, but you got to be sure you're not making mistakes, or use it to edit stuff you've already done and correct the mistakes you've got going on. Now, once again, this can seed new energy, new ideas, right? But it's also showing that once again, they should only be abstract ideas right now, and that you should be using the rest of the Mercury retrograde period to filter them and, figure out what's really something that could work in the real world. But it really gets us lost in our own world, in our own minds with the Mercury Sun inferior conjunction. Our own personal experience is really the only thing important to us. We're not good listeners. We're not good communicators, so it can be a little bit hard navigate this. It's always a little bit tricky. Now, Sunday also is when that Mercury retrograde trying Jupiter retrograde is exact that I talked about already. But, it's definitely a time, once again, showing a time when you can think about plans, have a good big vision, but keep it abstract right now, because it's not really, the world's not ready in reality to accept those plans yet, and you'll probably end up being frustrated. So that's what I got for this week. I know next week there's not nearly as much going on. And next week we do have Jupiter going direct. That'll be the last outer planet. I talked a little bit about that in the monthly, so I'll review that. And yeah, then Mercury retrograde is going to get go back towards Mars, so they're going to end up conjuncting next week too. So I'll be talking about that stuff next week. So this is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel. I need you to pass this link along right now to somebody else in your contacts as a little payback for that. If you'd like to give a currency donation, no amount is too small. My Venmo is at symbol at Matthew, two T's, hyphen in the middle, Lawton, Lauten. My Cash App is $ Matthew Lawton, all one word, two T's, Lauten. Um, like I said, the best way to support me though is when you're ready for a professional astrology reading. I have been doing them 24 years. I'd love to do your birth chart if you've never had it done by a pro. It's way different than getting a computer readout or checking it out in a book or having a friend who dabbles tell you a little bit about it. You'll get a lot more holistic. And remember, that chart never leaves you. It's your life. So you really should have that self empowerment so that you can work with your energy. And then every year around your birthday, I recommend doing a predictive one that tells you, just like I did for this week, it tells you what's going on in your life for the next year. And you can work with that. Be self empowered again. Feel more self fulfilled about your life. Make the investment in yourself. Also, do relationship charts, children's charts, um, horary election questions, looking for the good timing, deep soul fixed star readings, relocation, all kinds of stuff. Check the website out, www.astrologicalwinds.com. Has all that stuff on it. If you're a student, I've got some beginner classes on podcasts available, and I'd love to find 4 students for beginner or intermediate classes. Have to be committed, have to be prepaid, or it's not going to happen. Also, if you have a group looking for a lecture, workshop, mini readings, things like that, that can be done too. Can even be done electronically these days. Just check the website out, and that can be set up too. Thanks so much, everybody. Thanks for always tuning in, those who are regulars, and even the ones who check in every once in a while. I appreciate it. I can see that it's very helpful to a lot of you. I know it's really helpful to me every day. Astrology never ceases to amaze me how fitting it is for every day what's going on. All right, I will see you all next week. We'll talk about that Jupiter retrograde and that Mercury retrograde conjuncting Mars. Take care now.